Alright kids, Ham and Cheese back here again with you today, and up on the bench today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different than we normally do here on the channel. And it's going to be this guy right here. What this is what's known as a Motorola Minitor II alerting pager. Alright, and the reason we're taking a look at it today is we shared this in a Motorola user group last week sometime on Facebook, and that post absolutely exploded. Got like 600 likes, a whole bunch of reshares, and a whole bunch of people asking the question of how do I change the frequency in this or retune it to a new band? Because we talked about this being one of our very first Motorola modifications we ever did. Okay? And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how you do that. Very, very simple. Alright, before we do that, quick history on this thing. The Minitor II is Motorola's second Minitor in a series of 7. The original is going to be right there so you can see a picture of it. Was produced from, I believe it was 1982 all the way up to 1999. This is Motorola's most popular alerting pager of all time for voice. Okay. Reason being is because they're a rock solid pager. They never fail, they never quit, and they're so easy to work on. That's why everybody likes these. You don't have to think about it with this. Okay. These were carried by fire departments, EMS services, medical helicopter teams, emergency doctors. They carry them in power plants, industrial units. Anywhere and everywhere you can think of has used a Motorola Minitor II, and they've been used all over the world. Give you a quick overview of how it works. On-off switch with the volume. That's a volume pot under there. We'll look at that. This is a switch for changing from alert, which is this little bell, to channel 1, which is open. And then if it has a second channel in it, would be channel 2. And this is a switch to open and reset this guy right here. You can also check squelch with it. It'll make a sound, and I'll show you that as well. Okay. Looking at the bottom, everything's held in place with a single screw in the chassis, which we've already gone ahead and pulled because we don't Jason JJ Cruise on this channel. And it stays in the chassis like it is here. Okay? The 6 pins you see underneath, this is how it charges and how it communicates with an amplified charger. Standard charger, there's a picture right there. Amplified right there. And you read these from right to left, not standard like you would think. This is what's known as the J401 series. This starts with the charging pin right here. This is the ground pin, 1 and 2. Charger, ground pin. 3, 4, and 5 get left alone on a standard charger, and then pin 6, if it's equipped, would have for the alert out, which would have a little light flashing on it, or a solid red light rather, if you receive an alert while this is in the charger. Okay. On the amplified chargers, 3, 4, and 5 come into play. 3 is an antenna switch or an antenna port because these use on the amplifiers an external antenna. Number 4 is an audio disable, and number 5 is an audio out. So charge, ground, antenna, audio disable, audio out, alert out. Looking at the side of it, this is where the battery goes in. This is what the batteries look like. They're very, very simple design. And they're NiCad mostly. You can get them in lithium and they will work, believe it or not. The battery door is secured in place with this little switch that you see right here, and you depress that little square to get it to open. Battery door comes open then. On the back you have a belt clip. These things never break. These things outlive the pager cases themselves. This case can be smashed to pieces and this belt clip will still be in place. Alright, and that's the externals of the pager. To get the internals out, after we open the battery door, you can see there's a set of ears in there. You give those ears just a slight push and you pull them away from the unit. This is also how you change this battery door if that little clip fails, which they are notoriously known for doing so. And then to get the unit out itself, just give it a little pull. If it sticks, give the door a little more yank and pull it away just like so. Okay? Inside the unit itself, we locate a speaker. This speaker sits flush down into the unit with these little standoffs. And this is a very nice, very super loud 12 ohm speaker. Underneath that, it exposes the main board. Up here is the selector switch. You can see that switching right there just like so. This little guy right here is an LED. There's a little light there. It's a little red light that blinks whenever it beeps. And then, of course, your switch button with volume control as well on the end there. This little brass piece you see is part of the antenna system, along with this guy right here. Underneath of that is your main board. And then this guy right here, this is the RF board. This is the meat and bones of this unit. And that's what we're going to talk about in detail. But first, in order to get to that board, we've got to remove the antenna. To do so, we just simply slide away. Everything's socketed. And then we just pop it off like so. And then to get the back part out, same thing. We first pop it out. And then it'll just slide right away. Just like that. Okay? Now we have the main board exposed. With the main board exposed, you can also see the filtering section now better as well. When you look at these things for filtering, there's what's in here are what are known as reeds, or permacode active filters are their actual name, but they're known as a tone reed inside the circles. Each of them will contain a frequency, in this case 1034.7 and 304.7. When you read these things, you read them left to right like this. This is the A tone and the B tone. When the tones are sent out in a series through the Motorola Quick Call 2 system, which is how this operates, they'll send first this tone here, then this tone. When that happens, this pager will activate, go beep, 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 and then you receive your alert message. If you have one in this slot here, known as the C tone, this is a group tone slot. If you were to activate that group tone by pressing a button, it'll hold open as long as you hold the button there, which is typically done for about 4 to 5 seconds, and it's a steady, continuous tone versus a beeping tone. And that's how that part works. Now, to access the remainder of this RF board, which is where we need to do our work from, we're going to have to first take it apart from the main. And to do so, we're going to first pull back on this little tab right here. And while we're pulling back, we're going to slide this up. And you can see it creates a gap there. Once that gap is created, we're just going to simply pull apart. Everything's plug and play on these. Very, very simple, very easy to operate. Once that's away, we can see the IF filter here, or the IF can rather. We can see a couple relays, and then this is our tuning circuit for the antenna as well. This is how we tune up sensitivity on this thing. Okay, underneath we have a serial board, and that serial board is what drives everything. This is what brings the battery into the RF side, then pushes it onto the mains. This is what brings the alerting together and everything. That's the actual brain circuit of the unit. Now focusing in on the RF board itself, we'll go ahead and we'll bring it down a little bit for this. The RF board itself is where you do all your tuning and your frequency changes from. So we first look at everything you see on here. As you can see the RF cans. These are tuning circuits here. This is an oscillator circuit here. This open hole would be a second oscillator if this had a second channel in it, and I'll explain what that means here right now. When you flip it over, you can see the crystal. This is your frequency crystal with oscillator. Your second oscillator would be right here, and your second crystal would be right here. Everything on these is soldered in. It's not socketed, as you can see right there. And this is where I did the work to solder that in to change frequency. Okay? When you change that frequency, very, very simple. All you need to do is pull this crystal out and go. As long as it's close, meaning 154 to 155, 155 to 158, whatever. If you're going into Skywarn mode for this thing from 155 to 162, you may need to do a slight tune to it. These RF cans never get touched. There's never a reason to touch these unless something very, very dramatic has happened to this. Looking at the rest of the board, this is where that serial part connects like so. You can see that right there. And then these 3 pins are what drive the RF board to the main board then. Underneath it here, these are just a series of crystals and this is, I'm sorry, this isn't a crystal. These are actually, this is a transistor, and then this is a capacitor underneath as well. Okay? You don't ever have to touch those for any reason. They never fail. Now, if you get one of these and it's say 33 megahertz, and you want to take it to 162 for Skywarn, you have to change out this entire board assembly. And as you can see, it's just simple plug and play. And you can do that. This part doesn't matter. This will accept anything you throw at it. Okay? But these boards are band split specific, meaning VHF low 33 to 46 is what will go through the first part. VHF high 136 to 174, and then UHF 412 to 500. Okay? And that's as simple as that. That's how you do all that change out and work on that. We're going to go ahead and reassemble it now. Before we do, we're going to bring it back out to normal here. And we're going to show you how we do the injection for alignment. Alright, now the proper way to align this is you should use a frequency counter paired with a signal generator. For the purpose of this test, I'm going to show you how we inject signal into it so you can hear it at least. Okay? For this first part, we can leave the antennas off. We don't need them. We're just going to set everything together and we're going to get ready to set it up here. To power this thing up, we're going to power into the battery using our bench supply, and that's our Hengel 30 volt DC supply. For this purpose, it's going to be 2.4 volts and the nominal amperage is 200 milliamps. This is the positive side down here. We're going to hook in the positive like so. We're going to hook the negative to the spring up here at the top, just like so. We're going to make sure it's turned off, and we're going to power up our power supply. Now we're powered up. We'll go ahead and hit the output for it now. And now it's ready and juicing. To put the signal injection into play, we're going to use this guy right here. This is our Frincy DSO TC3. If you've not seen one of these before, it's a cool little unit. It's got a signal generator, oscilloscope, which I believe goes to 50 megahertz, and a component tester as well. For this purpose, we're going to use the signal generator. Already preset 1000 hertz at 3 amps. When you do the tuning on these, you utilize the antenna pin. Remember, pin 3 antenna. Black or red, doesn't matter which one you put on it. Either or is acceptable. Okay, now before we go ahead and inject signal, we're going to turn it on. You're going to hear a beep, like so. And then we have to move it from bell to channel 1. Before we do that, we'll talk about that squelch button again real quick. That's how you can tell if it's working correctly, and that's how you reset it when it's done. If you leave it in bell, you'll never hear that tone generate. Alright, so it's out now, ready to go. We're going to inject the signal into this area right here. And there you can hear it. Believe it or not, that is enough to activate that when it hears that open up. Alright? So that's how you would inject your signal using your frequency counter. If you just want to tighten this up for sensitivity, you would just inject, and then your sensitivity point would go through that oscillator right there. Okay? Alright, so there it is. In a nutshell, the Motorola Minitor II, how we make our change out, how we do everything to it. Very, very simple design. To put it back together the rest of the way, real simple. All we need to do is reassemble our antenna, which is done very simply like so. Start with the bottom, put it in place, pop it back in place. We come up to the top. We can leave the speaker out for this. We're going to lay it over like so. And catch that pin in the back. And then we're going to just set it like that. And then that last part, there's a little notch there that this slides into. We'll have to set it in there. And then the speaker itself, very simply, sets flush in the unit. See how that's flush in there like so? And we just slide it all back together at the end. Now, if it slides and it's hesitating like that, that means there's something hanging it up. So just go back, retouch everything, make sure it's all good, and then give it another go. And it's still hanging up, that means something's holding back over here. Give it all a good push. Make sure everything's lined out one more time. Yeah, see how that's hanging up? It shouldn't do that. So we're going to look at this one more time and make sure everything's correct. And we're just going to give everything one last push, make sure it's all seated correctly. And we can see that it is. We can see we have a pin here that's slightly damaged. We're going to put that back in place, just like so. And what was holding that up was actually that RF board. You got to make sure that's seated. There it goes. All right. So there it is, kids. The Motorola Minitor II. With that, I will say 7-3. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep it cheap and easy, just like me.